1,324,512,000, 1,324,511,999, 1,324,511,998. This could go on a long time. I'm sure none of us here, myself included, woke up this morning counting down the time that we had left on the earth. As a matter of fact, most of us probably didn't even think about it at all. However, all of us have a limited time here on the earth. According to a study reported by the Huffington Post in 2011, the average life expectancy of a man or woman in the United States is 78.7 years. Other studies have shown that our years on this earth break down into a lot of different subcategories, some with some pretty staggering numbers, which we'll get to in a moment. After a conversation, my daughters may remember this, but after a conversation with them a few months back, we were talking about time, I started thinking about that. It took me a few days, and I couldn't get my mind off of it. It consumed my thoughts. So I hope to give each of us maybe a chance to look at your time, my time, and see how the average person spends their time, and then who we can affect with our time. Now, because time is a constant companion, we rarely stop to consider how much time we have, how much we've spent, and then what activities consume that time. So let me ask you a question. The question is this: how fast can you count? That's good. All of us have had races with our siblings, our classmates when we were younger. We would recite numbers so fast that we would jumble those numbers, and at the very end we'd say 10 or whatever, 100, and we would say that we won. We've all done that in the past. And it's interesting to think that if we were to start counting right now, as fast as you possibly could and continued until you took your last breath, you couldn't count high enough, fast enough to reach the number of seconds that you have in your life. On this end of the spectrum, life seems rather lengthy. However, if we stated it like this, our newly elected president, Donald Trump, has amassed $4.5 billion for himself. If he were to spend all of his money in the rest of his life, all he would have to spend is $14 a second. You say, Brother Chad, that's a lot of money. Yes, but we could probably find some way to spend $14 a second. Money goes in a hurry. All of us probably feel that we would have no problem spending that. Either way, how we view our time is all about perspective. You see, no matter who the person is, no matter where they're from, what their occupation and goals are, life follows a predictable pattern. And that pattern is 78.7 years on average. And that breaks down to this: 28,726 days that you're going to have in your life, which means 689,412 hours. That goes to 41,364,720 minutes, to a mind-boggling 2,481,883,200 seconds. That seems like a lot of time. Now, remember that child we were talking about a minute ago who was counting so fast he jumbled over all his words? There's no possible way that even a small child could count all the way to 2,481,883,200 in his lifetime, since he would start just a few years later than when he was born. You see, time seems to creep or fly by depending on where you are in life. When we're born into this world with innocence, we don't even realize what time is. However, by the time we're a toddler, we're coming to a realization that time has definites. It's time for bed, it's time for lunch, it's time for school, it's time for break. And by the time we reach our teenage years, time seems to creep by very, very slowly, taunting us because we're still so far away from driving, from graduation, from marriage, from whatever it is that we're looking forward to. Then we hit our college years. Our perspective of time is mixed with a little bit of excitement because the future is so bright and the possibilities that are there. It's not until we reach our adult years that we look back on life and we say that life is going by way too fast. And by the time we hit the winter season of life, we have more to look back on than we have to look forward to. So the question then is raised: how do we spend that precious time? According to surveys conducted by the U.S. Help Guide, USDA, and New York Daily, and through some personal interviews that I've taken on my own, the amount of time that we spend on routine tasks is is astonishing, and you'll see. As we give these numbers, please understand that nobody falls comfortably into any one of these averages. We're all kind of mixed a little bit. But here they go. We spend some time sleeping. The time we spend over our average life sleeping is 23 years. We also spend a lot of time watching the television. The average time spent watching the television is 16 years. And we also, of course, have to spend some time working. If you're an adult, mom and dad work, you've seen them work. They spend the average of their life of 15 years. Isn't it amazing that the average person spends more time watching television than they do at work? How about this? We also spend a lot of time texting, emailing, or on social media, and it's climbing from year to year right now. But we spend on the average 11 years. If you're at this age now, you spend some time driving. The average time we spend in our life driving is 8 years. I know. Here's my favorite. We spend some time eating. How much time do we spend eating? Average of 3 years of our life is spent eating. And then we spend some time here in the bathroom. How much time do we spend in the bathroom for our whole life? An average of 1.5 years of our life is spent in the bathroom, and on an average of having an average of 30 minutes per day. Here's what's staggering. If you remember, we had 78.7 average years to our life. If we were to hit the averages on all these, we would spend 77.5 years doing these menial tasks. Now remember, those don't take into account early childhood years or anything of that nature. Now half the time is spent in direct contact with other people, whether it be through electronic communication, contact through work, or just passing. Now even if this were cut in half, we would have to say that no man is an island unto himself. Everyone comes into contact with other people and therefore has some sort of impact on other people. It's estimated that according to a survey conducted by the New York Times, that the average person knows 1,000 people. This number may vary from person to person. My own personal survey has showed that we know an average of 600 people, but 600 to 1,000 people is still a lot of people. Now, while conducting my personal survey, I also found that the average person only communicates with around 20 people per day. So most of those contacts fall into these three categories. Number one, our family. Number two, we also communicate with business relations. And then finally, we communicate with friends. You say, but Chad, what about strangers? We do communicate with strangers, however, it's so negligible the time and so trite that we often don't count that. Anything that is, we're thinking about the time we spend here with our family, with our friends, with our business relations, anything there, that time that we spend has an accounting, and we're talking about our time. We see the returns on our time based on who we have spent time with and how much we have influenced them. So everyone wants a return on any investment they make. There's no doubt. You invest money, you want a return on that. How does that return show itself in terms of influence that we have? If we're investing time, we want to make an influence on what we're investing. So what is my realm of influence? Well, a large part of our influence is through expectation. In his book, The 7 Laws of the Learner, Bruce Wilkinson rehearses the plot of the 1964 classic, My Fair Lady, which some of you may have seen. If you haven't seen the movie, you know the plot was or if you have seen it, the plot was to transform a poor Cockney flower girl into a lady of society. With a lot of work and a few dropped hints, the professor reached his goal. But it's a statement in the middle of the play, the movie, that Wilkinson points out that is so telling. Eliza, the girl, says, the real issue isn't how I act, but it's what people expect of me that make the difference. She was what people expected of her. The influence was put on her by expectation. You can see admiration also plays a great part of influence. How many young boys have dribbled the basketball through their legs, going down court, hanging their tongues out, only to get at the very end of that drive, jump, soar through the air, and dunk it on a 5-foot goal, all pretending they're Michael Jordan. I know, I can see it in your eyes. You've done that before. Admiration, who and what we admire influences us. However, the greatest realm of influence, according to Ron Lee Davis, in his book, Mentoring, The Strategy of the Master, is time. He says, for all the thousands who are eager to share their knowledge and skills with others, there are just a handful who are willing to share their lives. So you can't make an influence without action, and intrinsically, action takes time. So in other words, time is influence. Now we've seen where we break it down here. Life is relatively short, and it goes by very, very quickly. And in the time that we have, we undoubtedly touch others, we make an impact on others. Most excitingly, though, it is time that affords us the greatest amount of influence. You want to influence somebody? You spend time with them. Despite how rich or poor you are, all of us have 24 hours in a day, and we all have the same opportunity to influence others. So I hope this has been a help to you. All right. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate